Alrighty guys, welcome back to the channel. Once again, I'm going to cover this African crime epidemic that's been happening in Melbourne for some time. This isn't a new thing. This has been going on for a very long time. Now it's coming to a head with that unfortunate and horrible incident that happened over the weekend here in Melbourne where two children were slaughtered. Very horrible, very confronting. You may see the footage. If you don't want to see it, probably stop here. It's a bit confronting. Let's jump in. I'll give you my thoughts on it. I've gone for 9 years because you guys are hanging crap on me for watching Sky News all the time. I'm going to go 9 years today. We're going to see what Carl has to say about it.
Well, Melbourne's migrant community is this morning sounding the alarm after two South Sudanese boys were murdered on their way home from a basketball game. Aged just 12 and 15. These boys were ambushed and then brutally stabbed to death by machete-wielding thugs who remain at large. 12 and 15 years of age, dead.
There we go. So we can see here, not so innocent. They're making it out like the kids were subject to a brutal and untargeted attack by mistake. I was talking about this yesterday. I made a video about the initial story. Someone said something, they've been cheeky, they've been smartasses on the internet, someone said something stupid, they're probably throwing up gang signs and all this sort of stuff, talking rubbish, being young kids. And in this day and age, especially in that community, you get on the wrong side of someone, you're basically, you're going to be hit with a knife, you're going to hit with a machete, you're going to be chased down and hacked up. It's not new. So they've been stupid on the internet, and this is probably they've been chased down by a gang of kids, or they're not even kids. Some of them up to in their 20s.
To discuss, former Victoria Police Detective Charlie Brzezina joins us now live from Melbourne. Charlie, good morning to you. Look, the Premier, in many ways, has been MIA on this issue. Does she have any control?
No.
Not at all. This is a crisis, and she's come out again today in the newspaper or meeting yesterday. She joins a Congo line of mourners, but we don't need a Congo line of mourners, especially politicians. What we want in Victoria is action. Now, ultimately, we've been down the track. She's putting together another forum with the South Sudanese people. We've done that, been there, done that, and achieved absolutely zero. Now,
because there's zero respect for our laws and rules over here from people from these communities, because they come from war-torn countries where it's fight or flight. There are warlords going around. There's no going around and just massacring people, and there's a whole bunch of genocides and people just massacring each other with machetes without really even thinking about it. That's how conflict is solved. They come here, the same thing happens, but there's no respect for the legal system. And the thing is, these kids, or whatever you want to call them, kids, young adults who perpetrated this crime, they're going to end up in our prison system under the taxpayers' dollar. They're going to be paying for it. They'll stay there for however long. They'll come out even worse and reoffend in the community. Because jail for these people who are on this track, there's got to be something seriously wrong with you in your mind to think it is okay to run down with 7 of your friends or 6 of your friends or whatever it was and chase kids around the street because they were talking shit on the internet and hit them with a bladed weapon. So there's something seriously wrong there. It's just not compatible with our way of life here. It is sickening. It is disgusting. A lot of people are very upset about it. I wouldn't want to be the parent of, say, teenage children at this current point in time. You're worrying, you're sitting at home thinking, oh, my son or my daughter's gone out to a house party, or they're out with their friends, what they get up to, drinking alcohol in the parks or whatever teenage kids do. And they're going to come across people who are going to potentially do this. You might say, oh, you're being outrageous. This was a one-off. It's definitely not a one-off. This has been happening forever. I had a friend many, many years ago when I was a teenager who came from Somalia, and he was actually murdered this exact same way. I'm talking, this was in the 90s. Late 90s. This happened. This isn't new. He was stabbed and attacked by another person from the same community over an argument, and he died. This isn't you.
That's the whole issue about covering it up and just putting out token gestures like this. What we need is penalties. Penalties to be enforced by the judiciary that's pushed by the government. That's where we need to be. I don't count for much, but I've been saying this for a lot of months now, and now the police are coming out to do it. Now it is upon Mike Bush to be able to push back, like he said in his inaugural speech. I'm happy to push back the government. Well, Mike, now's your opportunity to push back the government and ask for the penalties to be dished out.
Well, they've got machete bins. That's a trailblazing thing to do.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This has been mocked basically globally. Okay, let's talk about machete bins. This is what people aren't overly talking about at the moment as well. And I was having a chat with one of my mates recently about it. So hang on, we've spent $13 million, taxpayers' money, to fabricate and install, I think, 40 bins. Just do the maths on that. So what's that? Hundreds of thousands of dollars per bin. And they had some guy, I saw on the news or something like that, and he was a fabricator. And he said, more or less, they cost 15 grand install each under those dimensions, 15, 20 grand, to be generous. Where's the rest of the money gone? How's it like 300 or 200 or 300 grand a bin? I'd love to see. So I think one machete has been handed in. And it was from a guy who used it as a gardening tool. There's no kids going, oh, you know what? Oh, we're just about to take out a gang attack on a rival member of the community. Oh, just sit around and put the bin amnesty in. The machete. Oh, boys, we got to go hand them in. Attack is off. We're not doing it. Biggest laughing stock. That's when you have these progressive leaders who are sitting around in offices their whole life, funded by the government public service, i.e. us who are paying their wages, who have no real exposure to what it's like to be on the ground, especially in these suburbs where this stuff's happening. Like this is in the western suburbs, Werribee type area, or I think it was Cobblebank. I don't know what that is, but it's probably somewhere out, far west. They don't know what it's like there because they're in Camberwell or they're in Hawthorn or they're in Toorak or wherever it might be. So they don't know. So we'll put some bins in. Everyone will hand it in an orderly fashion. Everyone respects the rules because we said to. These people aren't going to respect any rules. What are you talking about? Once again, you got your bin amnesty in a week. It's literally a week after those bins went live. Less than. This happens. So massive, biggest failure, biggest waste of money. Probably not the biggest waste of money the government's ever done, but it's a huge waste of money. And of course she's not saying anything about it because she's going to be criticised about the bins. Guys, probably halfway through this particular rant. Best way to help me out now, YouTube has changed a little bit. There's a hype button, and if you're on your mobile phone, if you go to the comments section and you swipe to the right-hand side, there's a hype button. So if you could press that, that really actually helps me out, because what that does is it tells YouTube that you're enjoying the video. Enough people do it, they push it out, and it helps me. Press the like and put a comment in for the algorithm. And if you're enjoying, well, not much to enjoy about this particular story, but if you like my thoughts and my content, consider subscribing. I try my hardest to get a video out every single day for you. All right, let's keep going.
Look, again, superficial stuff. That's all superficial stuff. That's going to achieve nothing. Like any amnesty, it brings the good people to hand in their weapons in relation to that. So ultimately, again, superficial stuff, it's not going to have a major effect at all.
Okay, so parents are so scared they're sending their kids back to Africa. That's the state of affairs.
Have a listen to that. And so hang on, it's gotten so bad here within the community, the violence, that the parents are sending the kids back because it'll be safer for them. Just have a think about that. Have a think about that.
Yeah, well, that's a sad state. They've come to this country for a new life, a safe life, and it's war-torn. That's what they're coming from.
Yeah, but hang on. I want to say one thing. They're not coming to a area where it's war-torn originally. They're importing it with each other. Right? The community's bringing it in. These young kids bring it in thinking that it's South Central, Bloods versus Crips, postcode versus postcode. I'm a 3876 boy, and I'm going to kill people who they talk shit about me on the internet. Because that's what these kids would have done. They would have done something dumb, right? They would have antagonised it, and these people, because they've got nothing else going on in their life, you desecrated the honour of Werribee, the Werribee gang. You're dead. What world are we living in? As I said, you import these communities en masse, and they bring all their problems. You're just bringing it in here. That's what it is. It isn't. They've come here and they're unsafe, and you've got ordinary Australians running around hitting them with cricket bats. They're killing each other, and it's horrible. What needs to be done? I honestly think they need to stop being so politically correct and need to say, hang on, people who are coming in from certain countries, there's a very high incidence of crime, especially amongst the youth. We're not letting them in. We're not letting them in. Blacklist them. That's it. And I'm not just saying for Africa, I'm talking Middle Eastern, all those communities that rely on violence as conflict resolution. Completely different way of thinking to how we deal with things over here. Blacklist, that's it, you're done. But they won't do it, they'll keep importing it. And there are theories out there, this is all being done on purpose to erode our way of life. It's hard to understand or really deny that if we keep doing it. This is just, I just think it's a horrible thing. I think it's a real wake-up call for people who say, you're racist, you're saying it's only African children, children from various African countries who are perpetrating these crimes. That's very racist. White people commit crimes, Chinese people commit crimes, Japanese people commit crimes. You don't see a lot of that going on. Like blatant, brutal massacres. That's a massacre, what they've done. And so you're going to see this footage. And once again, I'm ranting. But guys, you're going to see this footage. If you don't want to see it, leave right now.
Here we have two innocent, what great kids are these ones, coming back from a sporting club, and they're confronted with this. The police can't do it. They're doing as best they can. They are bringing these people to justice in relation to it, but justice is not being dealt out. There is no deterrent for these crime gangs. Okay,
firing squad. If you're a person who has taken a weapon, whether it's a machete, a sword, a meat cleaver, whatever it is, and you've hit somebody with that, you're not wanted here. Firing squad, line them up. I'm pretty sure there'll be no shortage of people that'll volunteer to pull the trigger and get rid of it. I know it's a horrible thing to say. You've literally massacred someone here. Send that message. If you do that, you're done. I don't want them locked up for life because we've got to pay for it.
The amnesty's finished. There's a 2-year imprisonment if you're caught with a machete.
Oh, wow.
Well, the maximum sentences are never dealt out by the courts. That's the biggest issue we've got here. And that's what needs to be done. Not a new law, just dish out the penalties that are there that already exist. Not hearing this stuff. Jacinda Allen, we are in a crisis. Put aside your trip to China and start doing something about it.
Just think about this. It's horrible to think about. The worst thing to think about. But a 12 and 15-year-old were hacked to death by machetes in Australia, in Melbourne.
It's a crisis. And then on the same day, we've had a drive-by shooting of a gentleman in the heart of the CBD of Melbourne.
Okay.
When people are going to look around and say, well, Detroit was like this. We are. Okay. Now, she's got to hang her head in shame. The buck stops with her in Spring Street. What are you doing about it? And we need the lobby groups. We need the police union to get off their backsides and start lobbying the government to protect the community at large. That's what it's all about.
All right.
We need the Chief Commissioner to start pushing stuff.
All right. Well, they're saying that they're going to do that, and let's see if they walk the walk.
All right, Carl, let the man speak. Let him rant. He's onto something.
Good on you, Charlie. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
As you can see, he loves a good rant, Charlie. Get him on here and have a good rant because it's just too politically correct.
Well, let's head south now. Victoria is fast becoming Australia's home of violent crime. In May, a machete attack sent a Melbourne shopping centre into lockdown. In July, a group of armed thugs robbed 8 convenience stores and service stations, terrorising staff right across the city. And just last week, a drive-by shooting saw a home in Melbourne's southwest peppered with bullets.
And this past Saturday, 2 boys aged just 12 and 15 were on their way home from a basketball game when they were brutally stabbed to death by machete-wielding thugs. And this is barely scratching the surface. For more, we are joined this morning by Chief of Melbourne-based not-for-profit AfriCause, Dr. Burhan Ahmed. Doctor, good to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us. So those 2 children who we just heard about, killed on the streets of suburbia in your community, first of all, how are their families doing?
Well, Sarah, thank you for the opportunity. First, this family and many families are traumatized. They have been waiting this to happen, and it's happening. The question is not what happened. I feel my heart goes to the family. But more for me is the protection of the coming. There's more coming to this than just what happened. If we can't act on it, there's more danger in our doors. No one is...
Yep. But that's what I mean. They're saying it's almost made as if we can't solve the issue here that they bring that is being imported. I'm not trying to be racist. It's the blatant truth. Like, this is being imported. These communities come and they're just doing this to each other. How about we just solve it and just, hey, we're not bringing them in. How about that? How about that? Because this is just a massive risk to the community. There was a story. I went to university out in Footscray many years ago. Good old VU. I went to Victoria University. There's a large African community there, and I'm sure 99.9% of them don't do anything wrong, and they're just trying to have their life and all of that. So I'm not saying anything like that. However, the facts are, there was a lecturer that I had, and he was murdered middle of the day in Footscray. Stabbed and had his head jumped on and all this just horrific stuff. Guy wouldn't hurt a fly, in his 50s, had a family, everything, just murdered. This was in the 2000s. So this isn't new, this stuff.
Safe unless everyone is safe from us. So these kids don't feel safe at all. And the community has been traumatized and tormented in the past, 3-4 days. 4 young men has been killed. The 2 on the Saturday, and 1 on Sunday morning, and 1 on Thursday. So this is not just...
So I'd say that's multiple killed in a week.
The first and the last. There's more to. So unless we do something on this, families are, especially mothers coming to my office, are crying for help.
Okay, we'll get onto that in a second. But some of these mothers have come to you, and is it true? I mean, you're a non-for-profit, and you've been helping terrified parents send their children back to Africa. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Well, yes, Carl. The families in desperate situation, and I have just been showing Julia. The kids have been stabbed by knife and all that stuff. They don't feel safe. The kid has been warned to be killed.
Once again, I know they're saying, and it is horrible. It is community safety. There are going to be children out there in the African community who are not partaking in this stuff. However, it's the kids killing the kids. So we have a wider problem here.
Mothers go to police station and ask, and police, unless they see something evident of crime, they don't act. When the crime comes like this, then they come, all of them and every one of them. This is too late. Mothers want before their kids being killed. So they need somewhere to go safe. If you send them interstate, they can't afford the budget to maintain that process by keeping some children here and other children on the other side. So the question is, the only The only safe place for them is to take the child out of the country and to put them in a safe place where they can feel he will be alive and safe for time to come.
Disturbing.
But the problem...
Yep, it is very disturbing. Literally, because I've touched on this before, how bad is that? That these families want to take their children now out of Melbourne, send them back to Africa, where they come from, where there's probably a lot of violence, because they feel that child will be safer. There needs to be some serious law changes here. It needs to be, if you're identified as being part of an African gang, or any gang for that matter, white, black, Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, whatever it is, you're getting locked up, or you're getting deported, or you're being sent to bloody Manus Island. Not even if you're a second or third generation, you're getting locked up. You're out of here. Crack down on it. Do what the Philippines did with the what they were doing with the drugs over there. You found to have any sort of drugs or drug dealing, the people were just executed. That stopped it. That made a big difference. We're not going to do anything here. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's lock them up. Let's put them in a boys' home. And they come out in 2 years and they're worse. They've been to university, basically, in the boys' home. They've made more gang connections. They're more educated on the system. Come out, man, keep perpetrating. More people are injured. More people are victims of theft, violent crimes. This isn't just about stabbings. There's carjackings. Literally carjackings, middle of the day happening here. People jumping into the car and saying, get out. Get out of the driver's seat. I'm going to stab you. And taking the car, kicking people's front doors in the middle of the night while the family's in bed. Ransacking the joint. Going down to supermarkets, 50 of them, flooding the joint and stealing everything off the shelves and running out. It isn't just the stabbing, it's an African crime wave. It is. That's what it is. And it's not racist. I don't care. It is what it is.
Also here that I need to mention, the child protection and the courts, they only see the papers. Where is the child? And you have to bringing that child is more to the crisis than to help that child to go back to school or to do any meaningful. So the families are now crying for more help to save their children, because some children are already on the target list. Unless we do something, there will be more of this to come.
You mentioned the police there, Ahmed, but what about also the government? Because what
about the parents too, though? Because think about all this sort of behaviour can start in the household. I know kids can obviously get in with bad crowds and be influenced, kids from their high school and social groups. And this is probably what this is, right? It's also probably a lack of future. It's hard to get jobs. Things are expensive. Maybe they're not encouraged in their community to, go to university. I'm just plucking things, right? Or get trades. They might drop out of school. They're hanging around the streets. They're hanging around shopping centres. Their gang that they're hanging out in is their life. That is their purpose. They will live or die for it.
A lot of the Victorians who I've spoken to are concerned that the Premier is not focusing on youth crime at the moment and is not keeping the residents of Victoria safe.
Well, to be honest with you, there is actions happening, but the actions are just superficial in a way. We need to understand the problem to solve a problem. Without understanding, we cannot solve the problem. The root causes of this are children dropping out of school. Unless we create an environment where these children can stay in school, preventing crime is the next step. The Premier is trying to do that. But for me, the call is, how do we help these kids to stay in school first? And then that protection and that support from prevention of crime and others will come to next step. So let's unite our forces to bring safety to each and every family here, to each and every child. And school is the first get for a 12-year-old. There is no place to go but school. And the schools has to also accept that. Our children has been the weakest link in the school to be kicked out.
Doctor,
due to behavior.
Sorry to interrupt, but we're almost out of time. The level of violence here.
Thank you.
And the proliferation of machetes, the images we're seeing and the brutal nature of these attacks, like we saw on the weekend, I mean, this is Australia. This is so shocking. Now, everyday Australians don't feel safe in their own neighbourhoods, and you're saying even those inside the African communities don't feel safe. It's got to be fixed. How do we do that right now to ensure the safety of those communities?
Any child, or you can call them whatever they want, child, adolescent, young adult who's been committing crimes, whether serious or not, gone out. There needs to be rules here. Do you think if you went to, I don't know, China, and you started breaking the laws, and a whole bunch of Australians went there, and we set up a commune, and we took over a suburb over there, and we just started running amok, not giving a stuff, do you think that Chinese government wouldn't come down on you like a ton of absolute bricks? What are we doing here? People say, well, no, G-Man, you're saying racist things, deport them, and all this sort of stuff. What's the other solution?
Well, to do that is, in my way, is reaching out to the community affected, not one or two. All those communities living in that sort of area, they know. To be honest with you, mothers come to me. They say, if they reveal this story, can I protect them? If they reveal what's happening to their kids or who is doing, can I protect them? I asked that, and I wrote a letter to the police. They can't give me any protection for them.
Yeah.
So I can't do that. But the question is, these people have the information. They know how to help their kids. But they're fearing for their life and for the other children. So the question is, to get over this, is to give these people the right support, the right protection, so that these things can be addressed. Otherwise, the kids are the weakest link that can be used and, thrown into many crises. And they are, in a way that they lost the track to education and to employment. The only track they have is dealing with these criminals. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. There is a hell of a lot of work to do there.
So what are we saying there? Give preferential treatment to African young men to get jobs? Who knows? Maybe there could be some programs, get them in there. Who knows? But I don't think this is a problem that's going away anytime soon. And what it does, you've got to think for these African communities, because majority of them are going to be law-abiding. They've come here from horrible previous countries, right, where horrible things can happen and there's a lot of crime, and they want to feel safe. They come, they do contribute, they work very hard, because I do know, I grew up with a good friend who was from one of those war-torn countries in Africa. And his dad came over here. I've told this story a few times. The mum and dad came over. The dad worked his butt off. He was driving taxis, cleaning toilets, doing whatever money he could do while studying. And he became a doctor and ran his own, practice. And so these people who are coming over and making a great life for himself and taking full advantage of the opportunities which Australia provides, I feel bad for them, because everyone's starting to hate the African community. Or not hate, but look at them as a threat, to be scared of them. And look, rightly so. The fear is not racist. The fear is not, what's the word, really unearned. Anyway, look, I've said my piece today. Hope you guys, give me your thoughts on the video. And once again, comment, like, press that hype button. Let's get it out there. Anyway, I'm having a frank discussion today. Thank you all. Once again, I'm shocked, pretty upset about this in terms of just how close it is to home. Thank you.